So when I started as a photographer, I didn't own a camera, I didn't own any equipment. I mostly just filmed on my iPhone and then would take screenshots and upload it into an AI iOS app like Remini or PixArt that would up the pixel count, and then I would sell the photos to bands that way. So even though I didn't have any equipment, I was still able to like join the field and experience photography in a more like quality way. So yeah, I've used it and I've been a really big fan of it.
I think it's a good question whether AI enhanced videography and photography is original even when it has a significant portion of its content edited, particularly because I'm not really sure how well we figured out the question of whether like using normal traditional tools to edit photography and videography, like for example a tool like Photoshop or Premiere, is still that original video. No matter what kind of editing software or tools or techniques you use, you're irreversibly changing the original content of the image to a point where it's not what it would have originally been, or not like preserving all the details that was in that original like artwork or piece. And a lot of the times, finished pieces that we see, such as movies or like photography from famous photographers, are not that original raw piece. And so I think it's a really interesting question that we already don't have an answer to, whether like photography and videography going through edits by a person is still original. I don't think it's a question that we're quite prepared to answer as far as AI's role in whether a work should still be considered authentic. I think there are some important differences in the approach, particularly how in the traditional approach that tools like Photoshop and Premiere enable, the fact that there's a human element at every point, that the author or artist in that work is making a decision to actively change things, where AI will just generate based off of what its algorithm is designed to and by the works it's been trained on. And I think it's an interesting question whether an artist or photographer prompting a AI with a certain description that they want it to generate counts as making those creative decisions. It's hard to find the line that separates authentic from inauthentic.
I agree with it, and the matter of the fact that it can be used as like an inspiration platform, or like you can look at it as like a way to enhance your photos but not add on to your photos. But I don't agree with it because there's so much of it these days that you don't know what is authentic, what you know is like fake, real. It's just all a blur now.
I think almost every editing software that I use right now has started bringing in AI software. Lightroom has started to do it, all of the different iOS applications, Photoshop, all of them have started using it, and I think more will. AI like settings can allow photos to be changed in more drastic ways than regular editing softwares and presets. So people do like it. I mean, I think if there's a big future in AI, and I think that'll continue to spread to pretty much every editing software.
I don't think it's affecting it too well. I mean, there's some aspects of it that, sure, like the auto-generating film, but you can help in some aspects to like remove and to add different things that are like small. But I think that it's hard to like tell what's like real, and I don't like that, you know? It's like these days it's like fake or real, and it's like the craft of photography is all about being authentic and what you see like in front of you, and not to like lie about it, I guess, especially in like news platforms and like social media too.
Absolutely. I think it opens a lot of doors for people who are like not able to afford nice equipment, like me at the beginning of my career. I really don't think I would have gotten started in photography had it not been so accessible at the moment. If I had needed to buy a $700 camera to start taking photos, I probably would not have. So I really think it's incredible that like AI will be able to open opportunities for people who don't have the ability to buy expensive cameras. So I think there's a lot of positives. I think it will open a lot of opportunities for young upcoming artists.
So, as with anything, there's benefits and downsides. I think there's a lot of potential in the AI editing space, particularly for streamlining some more of the time-consuming processes that a lot of photographers go through these days to get their images to the kind of perfection they're looking for. For example, extending backgrounds when a photo should have just been like cropped a little different, or removing a subject from the forefront that is just not intended by the photographer, or like making small changes to the way an image is presented. But I think there's a lot of danger too in the potential for tools like this to be used to undermine or replace the work of working photographers and videographers, really working artists as a whole. I think when these tools get good enough to the point that even if an average consumer, average person walking by can recognize that it's done by AI, that it reaches out of the uncanny valley into the other side, I think there's a lot of danger there for the potential for working photographers and working artists to face challenges finding work. Because a lot of, I would say the majority of employers are not looking for perfection. They're looking for whatever is good enough. And what scares me personally is when these technologies get to that point of being good enough for what working artists do, that we're going to see a lot of loss in the creative space.
You see, I feel like everything, just like anything, if there's too much of it, it's a bad thing. So if companies get a hold of AI, like generative photo and video things, and start laying off their actual photographers and videographers and try to use it as a replacement instead of an asset, real art will cease to exist. It's pretty obvious to the trained eye, like an AI generated image or video versus a real image or video, but to the untrained eye, it can kind of go either way. So it is dangerous if we try to replace actual artists and human beings with AI. But I think the biggest danger with AI is just greed of corporations.
It's dangerous because you can turn something so simple into something that can attack a certain person, a certain idea, a certain culture, and turn it all into another story that just degrades that subject. I personally see it more on the negative side, especially in news outlets. And social media, it's the same but lesser of. Definitely can change factual information, but yeah.
I mean, it could go either way at this point. Either photographers and videographers could continue to use AI to supplement their art and improve their art, or people could start taking it in the opposite direction and using it to replace authentic, candid art. But there is things that humans can do that AI cannot do, the way that we can capture a real life moment and preserve it forever. So I do think that there's parts of photography and videography that will forever be preserved because AI cannot replace that. AI cannot do those same things. So even though it can be misused and abused by corporations, I do think that there's things that it just cannot replace.
we are already facing an extreme issue in our country of media literacy, where many people are not taught in primary education how to distinguish between real and fake news, between videos and images that have been edited or altered to appear a certain way to push a certain message. A lot of us don't have the formal training or education to be able to identify when something might be trying to push a narrative that we might not necessarily agree with. And I think AI and machine learning and these image generation models are just the latest step forward in making this problem even worse for a vast majority of us, where we aren't going to, some of us, even with the education in media literacy, won't even be able to tell between real and generated. And I think that just furthers the problem and poisons the well of what really can we say for certain is true. And it's going to make it much more difficult for a lot of us to identify when narratives are being pushed towards us and when people are trying to influence the way we think or the way we believe.
This is a hard one because I'll show my mom a picture on the internet and she'll say, how do you know that's not AI generated? And then I fight the urge to say, how can you not? I look at the fingers and there's 6 fingers and the earlobes don't look like human earlobes, and the hair has 4 different textures and the pupils don't have a reflection. So yeah, to the untrained eye, a lot of people will not be able to understand, is this AI, is this not? And they'll start doubting real things. My best suggestion to the general public is educate yourself on what an AI generated image or video looks like. Educate yourself on those little things that they have, like the fingers, the ears, the hair, the eyes, because then you will be able to know immediately just by looking at it if this was a moment that was captured or a moment that was created.